Greg Norman has always hated the PGA. Here's why. Known as the Great White Shark, Greg Norman has secured a top-class status in the golf world. Although he remains in the limelight every now and then, he got a lot of attention when he was rude to a PGA Tour analyst. Join me in today's video to find out why Greg Norman has always hated the PGA. The LIV Golf versus PGA Tour plot thickens. Greg Norman admits that being turned down for a world tour when he's just 28 years old was probably his biggest motivation in his ongoing fight against the US established tours. And that, after a 30-year grudge and a lot of Saudi money, he would finally get his revenge. Today, I'm going to talk about what's new in the world of golf, starting with revenge is a dish best served cold. Later, turns out that money wasn't the biggest motivation for this 67-year-old ex-golf star. Let's be honest, if I were paid that crazy money, I would be set to let go of any sort of revenge. But that's not the case with this ex-golfer Greg Norman. Moreover, if I talk about his battle against the US-based Golf Association, the PGA Tour, which dates back to 1994, the two-time major golf champion reveals that he doesn't hold any grudges towards the association. But do you think that he doesn't? Well, because I highly doubt that. At the time, Norman wanted to establish a new series of rich, limited field tournaments to supplement the existing tours, which sounds strangely familiar, doesn't it? The Australian felt the need for a more global presence, certainly more than what the PGA was offering at the time. Given the top 5 players in the world at the time, Norman, Nick Price, Nick Faldo, Bernhard Langer, and Jose Maria Olazabal. Then, in response to the threat, Tim Fincham, the then head of the PGA Tour, issued a memo to all players warning them that if they participated in a World Tour event, they would be immediately suspended. It was essentially the same situation as what's going on now in the current drama between the PGA and Norman's breakout live golf series. History sure does have a funny way of repeating itself. However, this time, thanks to being sponsored by the Saudi government, Norman has been able to make his dream of a world tour come true and rub it in the PGA's face at the time. In his 2006 book, The Way of the Shark, Norman wrote about his disappointment with the way PGA executives have played everything out. He stated that the executives had reacted very emotionally and defensively to their idea of a world tour. They didn't even look into it and reacted too quickly, which led to incorrect statements being made. It became clear to him that Fincham didn't want anything to do with them. And then, instead of seeing it as a chance to do good for the sport, he accused Newman and the rest of trying to fatten their wallets instead. So, what did the PGA think of Norman's suggestion? In 1999, when a breakaway series looked like it might happen, the PGA made the World Golf Championships. It was a series of tournaments meant to bring together the best players in the world when there weren't any major championships going on. Moreover, it was supposed to be played all over the world. But most of the WGC events ended up in the United States, making them just another extension of the PGA Tour. Norman said that the PGA didn't do anything to bring together other tours around the world, and that they've never been interested in making a series like this to begin with. Further, he said that they did it just to make sure that there would never be a world tour. For instance, the PGA has done irreparable damage to smaller tours around the world in ways that can't be fixed. Let's take another example of the Australian Tour, which used to have a clear off-season. But when the PGA Tour switched to a wraparound schedule, it hurt that tour a lot. At one point, it was played in the United States during the winter. The PGA also sent him a souvenir from the WGC. It was a little squishy ball with a map of the world on it, and the words, World's Golf Champion, written on it. Norman remembered how angry he was and how he threw the ball as hard as he could against the wall while yelling at them. But how did Norman's idea of a world tour cost him his relationships with others? Even though the live golf circuit has split the golf world into 2 groups, one that likes it and one that doesn't, Norman was also sad that the bad world tour affected his friendships with players who were once close to him. Instead of supporting his idea, PGA executives instead opted to slander his image and make him a subject of their propaganda machine. The Australian, who had just won his second Open Championship a year before he thought of starting a world tour, said that this one was one of the things that made him lose interest in the sport. He hurt himself pretty badly, and he didn't want to go out and play golf anymore. After that, he vowed to never support the PGA ever again. And now, after 28 years, the man has returned with a vengeance. Not only did he manage to set up the world tour he always wanted, but he also proved how successful it could be by signing some of the highest-ranked golfers in the world to this circuit. The popular names include Phil Mickelson, Brian DeChambeau, and Brooks Koepka. Although you could argue that the Saudi government's $100 million plus signing bonus was part of the reason they signed up as well. Whatever the case may be, Norman clearly has a bone to pick with the PGA, which he has arguably managed to drive into a corner. Whatever may happen next will most likely change the world of golf forever. David Flaherty is leaving NBC to work on the LIV series. Even though it already has some of the best golfers on its team, LIV Golf is adding another big star. NBC sources say it won't happen on this field this time, but rather outside of it. David Flaherty is rumored to be leaving the studio and joining the breakaway LIV Tour as their official analyst for up to 10 tournaments a year, since he signed with NBC in 2015. Flaherty has been a regular on golf shows on both NBC and the Golf Channel. He's well known for his unique style and personality. Additionally, they already have Arlo White, who was NBC's main commentator for the Premier League for a longer time before he left for good earlier this year. Sergio Garcia says he wants to quit the DP World Tour because, since joining LIV, he doesn't feel loved. Sergio Garcia, a former winner of the Masters, wants to leave the DP World Tour after quitting the PGA to play in the Saudi-funded LIV Golf Series. He says this is because he's no longer popular on his home circuit. If Garcia leaves the DP World Tour, he won't be able to play in any more Ryder Cuts, but that doesn't mean he can't play in any more majors. But Garcia said it doesn't bother him and that he was happy with what he had done so far. Thomas Bjorn, who used to be Garcia's Ryder Cup captain, had been critical of the LIV series and all the players who had left to join the Saudi public investment-funded breakaway circuit. He said this at a conference at the BMW Championships. Bjorn told the LIV golfers, "We don't love any of you." And all of the players said this was heartbreaking for Garcia, who has played on the European Tour for almost half his life. And this statement made him decide to leave. He said that he wants to play somewhere where he feels loved. He said that he won't be able to play in any Ryder Cups, but he still plans to enjoy golf as much as he can. So, that wraps up for today's video. What are your thoughts on the LIV Golf versus PGA Tour controversy? Let me know in the comment section below. For more exciting content, subscribe to the channel and give this video a thumbs up. And see you in the next one.